folks, it's Poms here. Hope everybody has had a wonderful Christmas, and I hope this is working, the final live feed of 2024. So we'll give it a few minutes and see if anybody pops in and says hello. Let me look on my other screen here, see if it's working. Trying to become professional. Ryan and Lee, how are you, sir? You've been out smashing loads of fish as of always. Let me just, here we go. Right, it's actually working. Let's see if there's any questions or comments. There we go. Sam Roth, Dave Brock, good evening. Paul, good evening. James, good evening. James, I haven't forgotten. Bear with me. So yeah, Lee Jackson, good to see you. Lee, you've been out smashing them. Dave Brock, perch, I thought you'd be out off the perch. Or was it a bit too warm? Let me just switch this down. Keith Powell, me and Keith have been hard at work. Keith certainly has on the new magazine. Only a couple of days before that's launched. We're getting there. Gary King, good evening. Simon Ossel, good evening. Lee Horrell, local to me. Hope you're well. Michael Hart, well, that's obviously tonight. Andre, all the way from Slovakia. Is it snowing yet, Andre? Or is it like here, grim and miserable and foggy and pretty horrible? Yeah, we had a good Christmas. Thanks, Paul. I've eaten more chocolate than the tins. I've got chins upon chins now. So, yeah, Matthew Rice. Are we going fishing tomorrow, Matthew? Is it happening? Northern John is up on Charlie's pool, and I think he's on about 50 fish so far, so we need to get the rods out. Steve Bryan, how you doing? Season's greetings and all that stuff. So, yeah, tonight we're going to have the Mega Crimbo draw. Let me just, I've laid it out a little bit here, but, Stephen, Darren, even Paul, how are you? Good Christmas. How much discount do we get? Please, you get 20% discount, Darren. You just put in the code TEAM30 on checkout, and oh, sorry, 30% up. So I'm just being shouted out to the 31st. So get an order in. Lee saying perched now, but you're enjoying a few sessions. Sat down, to be honest. Well, that's fair comment. I'm going fishing tomorrow with Matthew Rice. He's confirmed. Debbie, how are you doing? Good evening. No snow. Come on, Andre. You're letting us down. Hard weekend. No one caught on 3 lakes at Complex. Oh, well, that's fishing, isn't it? That's fishing. Anthony, how you doing? Hope you're good. So let me just show somebody's going to win in the next 5 minutes. Tinny will be drawing, and there's so much stuff I'm giving away. I can't believe it. I feel like QVC or saying, well, I'm not going to be able to show you it all because I'm not going to be able to. I will just. Evening, Palm. Hope you had a good Christmas, and here's to Happy New Year. Same to you, Thomas, and your family. Good evening, Trevor. Oh, lovely. Lots of people popping in. So I'll just turn the old screen around. Is it all because you're all in with a chance of... I mean, that is absolutely full of stuff. There's bait. There's even... Remember these? I've got a couple of those. As Matthew Wright knows. Matthew Rice even. So, yeah, so the winner of that will be coming forth very shortly. Tinny's just about to draw that for me. Got some new bobbins. Yes, we'll talk about Matthew's new bobbins shortly. Wayne, how you doing? Matt Cox, how you doing? Right, so firstly, let me kick things off. Tonight's other draw, so just a normal draw. Hi Ed, hi Matt. Is for the range of grips, including the new Catfish Monster Cats hooks. So if you'd like to win 5 packets of the phenomenal, and I do say it, and I don't believe I'm, look, some people are ahead of the game. Who's that? Oh, it looks like Matt Rice. You've got no chance of winning. But grips, yeah, bit of a special hook design in my humble opinion, and obviously now thousands of anglers' opinions. They're going all over the world. So 5 packets for one of you fine people here this evening. All you've got to do is ping yes on Facebook Messenger to me, Simon Pomeroy, so to my private page. So just send yes through, and you'll be drawn. That will be drawn up about half an hour's time. So yes. So no, I haven't done any real fishing over Christmas. Be funny if you win too. You never know, Anthony. You never know. It should be winging its way to you very shortly. Oh, a few people are obviously entering. Lots of pinging going around. I've got my other phone here, just in case. Let me turn that one down. So, yeah, enter away, folks, and somebody will win £30 worth of grips, and that should keep you going for 5 minutes. Hi, Pat Flynn. Hope you're doing. Ed, hope you're doing. So did everyone have a good Christmas? I put up a post and saw loads of people getting loads of goodies from Santa that were fishing orientated. I got a brand new super. We play this Christmas. Was it Secret Santa? So one family member, you get a bigger stash of dosh to go and buy some. And I had on my list, I had some. I think they're called, are they muck boots? Really nice, warm, super duper wellies. So that was my Christmas present from my family that was around. And also I got one of those Sherpa jackets from the print biz, and not trying to plug. This is the trouble, isn't it? I always appear to be plugging stuff because I'm sorting stuff out for me, and if you want to buy it, you can. But I must admit, the new Sherpa jacket from the print biz that came through to me Christmas Eve, that is pretty damn special. I've been wandering around the fishery and that. So bonjour, back to you, Paul. Bought myself a new barrow for Christmas, Ed. Good man. Could you let me know if I get a yes from me, please? I've sent my friend request and says pending. If possible, could you friend the request? I will do. It comes through and I'll pick that up, Darren. So it will show on my phone later on when T does the draw. So fear not, sir. And when we do it, we always then do the friend requesty thing. I'm not very technical with all this stuff, but I will show you here one of my. I did put a post. Matt Rice, who's meant to be working hard around the fishery, has decided to make some of these. He's a bit of a whiz at engineering, so I don't know how to get it in focus, but it's a set of swingers. So tomorrow he's made himself some, and he made me some. So stone swingers, contact Matt Rice if you want some, and we're going to be testing those tomorrow. So that was a nice little gesture, so thanks again, Matt. How much is one of the new jackets? They do look smart. You get 15% off at the print biz, Anthony. So when you go in there, somebody here hopefully help me. You go and I think on check, I think it's Team Pal, TEAMPALL. That'll give you the 15% discount off the recommended retail. It's nothing to do with Palatrax. It's a company we use. I know Paddy. I've known Paddy for years, but he's able to do what he's able to do for us. So yes, Luke, how you doing, sir? Good to see you here. So what have I got to talk about? I've not really organised much, to be quite honest. I've been working on the magazine with Keith for about 3 hours this morning, which was. It's getting interesting, so we'll tell you. Inscribe my kid's name on, and I'll have a set. Yeah, right. I'm going to get. You'll have to talk to Matt about that. That's definitely not my department. But yeah. So this magazine, if anybody's got any questions, do fire away. If anybody's interested in writing features, Keith Powell, he's the editor, so feel free to reach out. It's a 60-page monthly magazine online, so you can download it. There's 8 competitions, some really good competitions in there as well. There's features. We're talking, some of the stuff will be disruptive because we're able to explain for the first time, I suppose, in print, some of the reasoning behind Palatrax. It's not a Palatrax clothes horse. Obviously, it's got Palatrax mentions and products and things like that. We can't help that. That's what we're using. It doesn't talk about ejecting leads or anything like that. It's just basically talking about fishing. There's step-by-step guides. Keith's done a great job of putting in video content, so you can whiz across to video content. But any questions, make my life easier on the feed and ask me away, and I can explain. But hopefully we're working on it to be basically something that's going to be interesting, and people will want to, especially newcomers, will be able to look at, how to, for example, it's how to make a fluorocarbon. Step by step is one of the features that we've done. So what's out? Catch More Fish goes live on the 1st of January. So there we go. Evening all, listening from work and packing. Yes, old Richie's coming down here tomorrow, Mr. Shaw. My mad uncle is back en route down to his second home, and he's going to be fishing with Northern John, so that'll be nice. What would this is from Steve Bryan, what would be your tips for carp or pike in really coloured water? When I say coloured, we have a lake that is chocolate soup at the minute. Well, ho, ho, ho to Scouse up in Scotland, nearly in Scotland. It's always the difficult. There's people on here like Paul Perch and Lee Jackson who are more inclined to be able to answer that better. I mean, I've always predominantly used like on-deck spinners, which are very, very, I don't know if I've got one here. I did have one here. And there's a very silver. I mean, but fish will attack on vibration. They will also find, like we know, like high oil content mackerel. So they will find it literally by taste on the water. But they will feel vibration. Obviously, there's fish in there. They will have to feed. But another thing that you can do, and this is not done very much, and I don't really know why, is it's almost like putting out the decoys if you're going to go pigeon shooting. So you put out pigeon decoys and another pigeons turn up. So if you go for the predators, put out something that's going to attract the silvers, which is their food source. So put out some ground baits in certain spots, tight spots, and then literally fish into that ground bait. And though you're not using that ground bait to attract the pike per se, or the carp will come in on it for definite. But what we got to remember as well is, especially with carp, pike obviously are more sight feeders than anything else, and predatory fish are. But when you've got carp, just think at night. They can't see anything at night, so they will find your food, and they'll find it through a thing called the olfactory system, which is their ability to, like we can smell on the air, they can smell / taste on the water. So don't think not to put out this time of year, especially when you're trying to get fish moving, something that's high attract as well, so a high attract boosted hook bait. But yeah, don't think just because this is something I've come up, it was something I used to think. I think because of my fly fishing, it became very relevant to me. It's not all about, what we see. It's about what the fish senses and different times, different lights and things like that. But the sensing element of it is the key. It's not what we see, it's what they have the ability to sense. So hopefully that makes sense. But if anybody's more about dead baiting, just do put a post up and help old Stephen. But just like I say, don't think just because you can't see through it, they can't sense through it, because that's what happens. And it doesn't matter what species, the species living in dark water conditions all the time, and obviously at night it's completely dark. So but ground bait, if you're looking for predators, perch, pike, put some ground bait out into the swim and fish amongst that ground bait, because it will draw in the silvers and you can go from there. And that can really work. And I don't know why it's not promoted that much, but you able to do? Where are we going? Looking forward to the magazine, Darren? Yeah, no, it's we've worked really hard, especially Keith, I have to admit. And there's some people who have 1 second, I've just got to pass the phone over, who've come on board. We've got fishery updates. We've got my catch feature from Top Cats and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're hoping. We're not hoping because we know we're doing it. There's no hidden agenda. We're just doing it because there's nothing like it out there. What is out there, we haven't got adverts, we've just basically got competitions. So it's not that, there's a couple of things about like joining a team and things like that in it, but it's dedicated to trying to help, trying to go back to that old school element of, the fisherman's handbooks and things like that, where you can pick it up and you can actually learn something and take something away for it. So, I believe, New Zealand, I think she's over there at the moment. Where are we going? Sorry. Perch, pike-wise, locate the bait fish, then smelly bait. Yeah, so Paul's basically saying, Steve, that very similar to what I'm saying. It's at the end of the day, whatever you do, wherever you go fishing, it is all about location. Find fish, and then at least you'll be in with a shout of it. So regarding the Canada boys and using rice, what are your thoughts? To be quite honest, they are very, very highly regulated in Canada on what they can and can't use. Obviously, rice being a simple carbohydrate, you don't want to pile loads of anything in, but you're talking, thousands of acres of water these folks have got out there. It's a totally different kind of management side of things. But they're very, very highly regulated. Something, unfortunately, we're not, or well, we should be. All bait companies should be animal feeds registered, but for some reason, not going to get into it, but many aren't, and you have to. But I do have to question. I would suggest the users of those companies have to question why. But using rice and in what they call pack bait, basically in America as well as Canada, is being something that they've done. I mean, they do it out in places like Thailand, so they're building basically the base of almost a method mix in reality. Very, very simple, very, very low protein content, but it's not something that would harm unless you put it in volumes where it wasn't being eaten, it was rotting and things like that. Right, where are we going? Lee Jackson saying the same. Talk about Canada. There's Galen. Can you there's a question just come about you using rice over in Canada within your pack baits. So if you're able to put up a post here about that would be fantastic. Tom, how you doing? Happy Christmas to you and yours. Donna, I've seen you've done so well. Donna's lost huge amounts of weight, something that I can't do. Simon, good evening. No worries, Stephen, you're here now. Water soluble attraction for carp. There you go. And that is something you've got to think about, folks. Hang on a second. I'm getting all. Hang on a second. I press my phone, and all of the questions disappear up or down. It's me. It's got to be me. Nobody else seems to have these problems. So just going there with water soluble. So, for example, that's one of the prizes we'll be giving away shortly. The boosters. All right. Now, a lot of kind of boosters out there are put on an oil. Now, the trouble with oil will just sit around the outside. So if you spray that on, say, a boilie, this, because it's got water, it will ingress into the bait, into the ground bait. If you spray it on oil, it tends to sit on the outside. Yes, you can mix hemp oil and things like that. But if you really want to impregnate something with a flavour and an attraction, do seek out stuff that's got on a water base, because water, I'm not being cheap by putting it on water, I'm being savvy by putting it on water, because that will ingress. So that is one thing. If it's not water soluble, it won't kind of leach out and do what we want it to do as efficiently as a water soluble, an oil, because you can put it on. And there's lots of different oils as well. It's not like there's just one oil that everybody puts their tractors on and things like that. So hopefully that makes sense. Who's been watching the football? Surely I'm better than football. Paul's just adding, if this is further about Paul and Lee Jackson know their stuff about, well, Lee's actually got a feature in the new magazine about perch fishing. But yeah, temperature wise, fish will tend to do different things in different temperatures. There's lots of things with variables that we can't really cater for. They are what they are on the day. There's a lot of thoughts about air pressure, that the fish will find a comfortable position to sit in the water because of the pressure on the swim bladders, all these things, but very, very difficult to really drill down in. But there's definitely times, not all the time, don't get me wrong, but definitely times when it's very, very cold, that fish will sink to the lower parts of the waters, because that's actually where the warmer water actually is. So can't believe that's sold in 30 minutes. Oh, that's obviously some football thing there. Simon went beach casting today. Caught 2 whiting and a dad. Good man. Well, it's just funny. Northern John's here, and he's really into his sea fishing. And we were chatting sea fishing this afternoon. We're sitting there. We'll show you this in a minute. I was tying a rig up and showing him a rig I'm mucking around with. And the sea fishing around me is phenomenal. And hardly anybody goes. Massive tides. And I got all the gear. Just don't get a chance to get out there, I suppose. Should make sure. Get me fishing for New Year's Eve. There you go. That's not a bad shout. Nice. Whereabouts do you fish? I do a bit. Okay, people are talking to each other, which is great. mixes great. Phoenix so today off the Suffolk coast. Vince, talk of the devil. He's saying about using flavoured rice as well, and you can. Obviously, you think something like a basmati rice or something like that. They have flavours and aromas attached to them. So because they're very easy to impregnate with a flavour, it's another option there. Anthony's then asking me, all I would ever say is what we have in the UK. So me ask whether we could use rice in the UK. Now, I would suggest rice is actually better than some of the stuff that I do see out there on the market, especially like on eBay, ground baits for like £1 a kilo kind of thing. You think, what on earth's that? I would suspect, and you can't hold me to this because I say I don't know. I've not used it. I tend to use things that have come directly from the fish farming market, or proven things over the years that have benefits to fish and also the biomass. But if you're not putting stupid amounts in, I wouldn't say that at all. It's a problem. And at the end of the day, what will happen with products like that is it will break down. It will let other things within the watercourse, and that's why we're very, very keen, or I'm very keen to promote, using safe baits, because it's not, a bait doesn't equal food, and it might not be a source of anything for the invertebrate life, and the invertebrate life are the building blocks of obviously a fishery or any watercourse. So but I wouldn't thought you had any problem. Have a play around, but I just don't I wouldn't say for a minute put in lots. Just put in a lot, have a play around, put some in the margins, see if anything moves in on it. But I no issue giving it a go. And I say I'd rather use that than a lot of the other stuff that does flop around out there, which has no place in water. But if you look at these other countries where they do use rice, and Canada probably being a best example, is Canada, as I said, is really, really heavily regulated. They wouldn't let you use things there. There's a lot of focus on water quality. It's a shame that, we only got to see the horrendous water companies over here, what they're doing to our water systems. But in Canada, they know water quality has to be catered for. So I wouldn't have thought you'd have had a problem, Anthony. But it's where I come from is I will use ingredients that are very, very good for the biomass, not just the fish, and also cater for the water quality. And I wouldn't want somebody coming to my pools because they're small and throwing in a load of rice. That's where I would stand with it. Hopefully that makes sense. Matt Woodman, a man from the Pallington days. Right, where are we going? Ian saying, love the boosters. Always got, I must admit, I'm a big fan of these, because I'm changing flavours like I change flies or like I change lures if I was predator fishing. And I found when I'm doing my fly fishing, I'll have different flavours. Fish on the day react to different flavours, and that, whether it's just me, I don't think so, because obviously don't forget we're using flavours on the deck, and I've seen reactions to different flavours, and then I'll fish with that flavour and catch lots of fish on one flavour. If I then stop catching fish on that flavour, I'd change to another flavour. But because the boosters, they're our flavours, and again, it's always difficult, and I hope by now, though I'll probably apologise to the end of my time, I'm not trying to sell stuff. I develop this stuff for my own fishing, and that's a key part of my fishing. And so what I'll do is I'll take, for example, let's just say a jungle boilie. I'll snip off all of the edges, so I'll take off the membrane, and so then you're directly in, so there's no skin as such. And then I'll put like 10-15 in a bag, a little plastic bag, give it, say I want to taint it with cranberry or wild crab or whatever I want to do, so I'll spray that into the bag, blow a bit of air into the bag. Don't do it if you've got wild crab in there. That's not a good idea. I've done that. And then just shake it round, and then just leave it soaking, and do it the night before you go fishing. And by the time you go fishing, yes, the baits will be slightly softer. There's nothing wrong with a soft bait as long as it stays on the hair for the amount of time you've got it out there. If you think in real terms, nothing that fish of really eating, like the invertebrate life and stuff like that. It's all very, very soft food items. Yes, they can eat harder things like crayfish and one thing or another, various things. But no, soft baits, I'd always say use a soft bait, because that means what's inside it, as long as there's stuff inside it, can therefore get out. Stephen, good evening. Daniel, good evening. Good to see everybody here. Oh, Christmas is over for another year. No worries, Stephen. As long as you made it, that's the main thing. Season's greetings. So Galen's saying, yeah, we have to be creative with our method, pack, air and free offerings, as it has to be plant-based. That's the thing over there. So if you read Galen's post that he's kind of just put up there, and Galen in the new magazine, actually, he's doing a monthly series for us. Galen, I have to take my hat off. I proofread that last night again, and yes, very good piece. But lots of these things he'll be explaining in Catch More Fish magazine, because he's our main man over in Canada doing all the writing and bits and pieces. I'm sure people like Vince will bob in and stuff like that. Hiya, Matt. So Galen is also saying we can't even use boilies that are non-plant based as a free offering, only as a hook bait with one rod. And I guess that's coming down to, again, you know, the entities that are in power in Canada are realising that just because it's round and smells of strawberries, it doesn't mean it's any good. And I know you're not allowed to use various fish meals and all kinds of stuff over in Canada, but there's plenty of fish out there being caught on within the rules. I mean, I know, for example, they catch loads and loads of fish over there on maize and corn and things like that. Have you got regulated poultry you're allowed to use? I mean, if you're talking to me, Trevor, we're animal feeds regulated. We have been from day one, to be fair. Having had, you know, and you may have heard about it, or because I've openly promoted it at the time, though I was told to be rather quiet about it all, is I had a fish kill 24 years ago now, something horrible, and I started looking into why, and I started looking into baits, and don't get me wrong, it's literally a case of the good, the bad and the ugly, and I didn't want the bad and the ugly going into my water courses. So, and like these pools I've got here are very, you know, they're small, just shy of an acre is the biggest one. So we're using proven food source baits. But like I say, I know James is here. James knows a lot about it, about the regulations that we do come under through DEFRA and things like that, where we have to be animal feeds regulated, so you have to have a registration number and things like that. But there's plenty of people out there who aren't and don't have it, and all I would say is be very, very cautious, because I wouldn't want you to be buying bait that's not good value, but more importantly, I suppose this should be A and the other one should be B, is you don't want to be using something that's detrimental. We talk about fish safety all the time, don't we? You know, have an unhooking mat, have this, have that, but what about if we're putting stuff into water that is making our environment unsafe? And I would say, I was talking to Keith about this yesterday, about stuff we're doing in the magazine, you know, how important it is to impress on people. Not because I'm trying to flog anything. Go to a regulated bait company, like Dynamite Baits, for example, they're regulated. CC Moores, they're regulated. So those companies have actually done the right thing. So there's companies out there, but what we do, and I'm always impressing, that's why I'm totally anti-dumping leads and things like that. We've got to look after, the first point of fish safety and the environment is looking after their home. And if we're going to put things in there that are going to be detrimental, like drop lead into a bed of, say, bloodworm, that's going to displace or kill it. You know, nothing can live on or around lead. So these crazy folks in the industry that are telling people to, you know, almost forcing through narrative, saying drop lead, they're not considering all the facts that lead harms, you know, life forms. You know, it doesn't melt and disappear into the water and contaminate it like that. There is potential for that in certain circumstances, hence why we no longer have lead pipes. You know, because of the water pushing through, little particles could come off, and lead is, you know, bad stuff. So you're talking, sorry Trevor, I butted in, so they are allowed, but that question there, Galen, if you're still here, have you got regulatory boilies that you're allowed to use? That was aimed at you from Trevor there. James is switched on. That's correct. A minimum they must have is an ABP license and abide by the feed hygiene regulations to produce bait. So many don't even have that minimum requirement. Yeah, it's I've had conversations with James about this. Excuse me. And it's woeful, you know, because we're an unregulated industry. You'd think, like, say, the Angling Trust, they would be up in arms about it, or the Environment Agency will be up in arms about it, because if we're putting things in that are negative to water quality and the biomass, which includes the fish, why are people doing it? I've been accused loads and loads of times. People don't, you know, again, make no assumptions, but I had that fish kill, and it made me realise that not all bait is equal, not all pellets are equal. I was doing things that were fundamentally wrong. I'd row out, because we had trout in one of the other lakes, I'd row out with a trout pellet in a boat, poke it over, and then fish into this big and then the guy who was selling me the pellet, you know, from in the market, was scratching pellet, saying, "Why are you doing that? It's not for coarse fish. It's for trout, and trout have a stomach, and coarse fish don't. They have a digestive tract." So, yeah, it's a bit of a thing. As soon as I've popped my head up about the parapet, I get shot down about lead, and I get shot down about bait ingredients, but I don't care. I know I'm doing it for the right reasons. Don't buy Palatrax. It's not about buying Palatrax. It's about doing what's right for the environment we fish with, and it is really delicate. And every year we see fish kills after fish kills. Ian Brookman, season's greetings. What's Lee saying? Using natural ingredients is key. I steer well away from some of the chemicals and made ingredients, because Lee makes his own bait as well. And again, when you're talking to somebody like Lee, who makes their own bait and he's got a customer base, so if you're interested, come shout out to Lee. He's on the team. If you're interested in baits from him, you'll find manufacturers like us, we're very, very kind of into it from the quality, the fish catching ability. It's not like mass produced. It's produced at a level where we're still in charge of the quality. We're not putting it out. We're not, getting base mixes from these companies where you can go and buy a base mix and then just put flavours and things like that. We're using fresh eggs as binders and things like that. So just because of bait, and it's very, very frustrating, I always have struggled to articulate it, just because you've got a red bait and it smells the strawberries and it looks the part, etc., etc., it doesn't mean it's any good. You know, it's talking to us in here. Oh, that smells lovely. Fish will love that. Will they? I suggest it doesn't make that. No worries, Ian. Hope you're well. Sometimes, Vince is saying sometimes use flavoured olive oil, not vegetable oils. It's been banned for animal food. So there you go, you see. So there's lots of regulations out there in different countries, but we're not regulated. What we should be regulated is, to say, in my humble opinion, to make sure we're not making mistakes. Some of us could be making genuine mistakes. You know, we should be regulated like the aquatics market. If you go into any pet shop and pick up things, and this isn't not really getting into basically nature. This is getting into an isolated fish tanks at home, or small fish pools and things like that, ponds in your garden. Why are they regulated and why are we not regulated? That's the question I think every angler should be asking, for two reasons. As I said, one, the environment, and two, well, why would you be wanting to buy and fish on something that's inferior? That's where I come from. Anthony's saying, one of the waters I fished this year, we were told to drop leads due to the amount of weed in the lake. To be honest, I'd rather lose a fish to a hook pool than drop a lead. And I'm with you, Anthony. And again, that has been borne out. And I know fisheries, I've been in fishery management for over a quarter of a century. They've followed a trend, because the industry has said, drop lead in weed. People have just done it. They haven't questioned it. They haven't said, well, why? What does that make a difference? And to be quite honest, it's a crazy position, because the fishery isn't taking on board that if you drop a lump of lead, or thousands of lumps of lead, because that's what we're talking, into the substrate, so into the top couple of inches, that's where life breeds, that supports the whole biomass and lives. You drop it in lead, like if you've seen those ones I bought in from the water, my fishery, we haven't fudged it, nothing is living on it. Bring in a stone, it's covered with life. So why fisheries are telling people to do that, unfortunately, they're wrong. And when you go up against the modern narrative, you're treated somewhat as a pariah. So I'm a social outcast to some, by just saying, look, I would really look into it. The irony is, you've got all these fisheries over in Thailand that aren't impacted by the trade. They've all gone stones only because of the facts, not because of they for any reason that they are associated with Palatrax. They're associated with Palatrax through the stones and through things like the grips, because it's all focused on fish safety. So I think collectively, if the industry or any industry, I suppose, can do this, and it sounds like I'm on my, tree hugging kind of thing, but I think we should look after the waters we fish in. And when we go, and I know people on the team are as it's abhorrent to them as it is to me to go to a fishery and you've got just crap everywhere, old bits of line, big bundles in the bushes, beer bottles, cans of sweet corn, thrown in the margins. I think it's just, terrible. But when you're talking about lead, you're talking long time impact. And as one water quality scientist, Vernon Thomas, once wrote to me, he said, the lead situation from dropping leads is an environmental time bomb waiting to explode. It's not me saying that. That's somebody who really knows his beans. So there we go. Where are we? So multi-worm smells are nothing but catches plenty. Yeah, well, again, we come back, just because it's a human element, isn't it? We'll smell something and go, that's nice or that's nasty. And I can remember going to a shop in Reading, it's now gone, unfortunately, which is so many, the high street is going. And this lad, only a youngish lad, I don't know, 19, 20, a lot younger than me. And I had some samples. He said, I need to taste them. I said, why would you? Oh, I won't fish with anything that I won't eat. And I'm just sitting there thinking, where's that coming from? And he goes, well, let me have some of those. It was multi-worm. And I said, look, mate, I'm not being funny. You really don't want it. It's full of, all of these different worms. And, silkworm, earthworm, mealworm. No. And it's pretty rancid stuff. And he sat there chomping on it. And it's obviously disgusting to taste because it's all made of things that are naturals which feed fish. So it's like saying I'm going to, get a load of worms and a load of maggots and I'm going to chomp down on them and I'll only use them to go fishing if I like the taste, which is crazy stuff. Galen, I'll let Trevor, thanks for that. You've answered Trevor's query. Vince fishes in off a dock predominantly that he on an island that he's got a property on in Canada, and you're fishing in some heavy situations you've never needed to drop. It's just it's a Ponzi scheme, I'm afraid, and I'll stand there in court and say my piece and have no fear that I'm doing anything, and I'll be the first to say a stone is not a lead. Don't compare a stone to a lead. It's not. A stone is an independent. If you want to have the advantage of stones, use a stone, but if you're going to use a man-made way, use something. They're called non-toxic for a reason, because they're not made of lead, because lead is the toxin. So therefore, really, if you go into a tackle shop, in one corner there'll be a little dusty board or pot or something like that saying non-toxic weights. Well, actually, they normally say non-toxic lead, so there's some iron in that. So therefore, should we not be putting signs like they do in America and Canada as well, saying lead is toxic? It's not me on a high horse. It's just, I think it's shocking what we're doing, to be quite honest. Shocking what we're doing. So Paul is talking. Couldn't agree more about dumping lead, where it will end when all the water's toxic. Yeah, well, I say the substrate life. It's just appalling, because people aren't thinking that daphnias and all these different, shrimps and things, minute stuff that we don't even see, is really, really heavily impacted, especially mollusks. So Neil Oliver, you're still on well. I'm sorry about that, Neil. Come on, get yourself better. You need to get back down here, mate. You need to get back down here. Yeah, Paul Simmons is saying I prefer to ask questions to get more. That's why I always preach out, question everything, assume nothing. The fact is that you should be able to pick up the phone to me and said, I need to talk to you about your bait. I'm not going to sit there and go through all the ins and outs of how to make the bait and things like that, but I should be able to sit there with my hand on my heart and reassure you that everything I've done is for the right reasons to give you a quality bait. But I'll be the first person to say, like at the moment, like Northern John's up on Charlie's, and we know it, the weather down here has been very mild, which is why we fish well in the winter. Lots of fish have been caught at the moment in some of these mild climates, but he's just fishing the 17mm pellets, and if you look at those as the ingredient profile of those pellets, they're dedicated to coarse fish, and they've got a high oil content of 15%, which is the maximum you would really ever want to use for coarse fish, because they don't have a stomach, they have a digestive tract, so it's different completely. Just because they've got fins, it doesn't mean they're the same. That's like saying things on Earth have legs, they're going to, I suggest the chicken eats something different than a pig or a camel or whatever. Caesar's grease yours. That's from Brian. So, right, just to give you another plug as the clock is ticking. I'm starving. Start my dark there. I know it's wrong. There's so much junk around the house. If you would like to win a whole load of the old wonderful grips hooks, please just ping, as people are. Ping yes to Simon Pomeroy, my personal messenger, Facebooky thing, and somebody will get drawn. So that's for 5 packets, and that includes the new catfish hook. And that is the one that so many fisheries over in Thailand are now going across to. So you're catching, like when I was out there, I caught several different mouth-shaped species on that hook. So, and I know people like Ian Higginson and who were testing it in the early days. It was, you know, using carp as well. So Lee, yeah, he hasn't caught that one. That one, Lee had a fish out of Charlie's it must have been last late spring or something like that. 24.5. I haven't seen it since, so I wonder how big that is. What's Ian saying here? Sat here in the middle of the Cotswold Water Park, wondering just how much lead is in the water here. It's insane to think there's tons of lead. Oh no, I pressed the wrong button. Hang on. 1 second. There's tons of lead. Makes me think why we can't get others to change the stones. Well, I think it's a great. Can you feel my pain and my frustration? I fish with a stone because it's an anchor point and it casts and holds, and everything that we put out. That's one of the main features that I've done in course, Matt. Catch More Fish magazine, because it's not like I'm pleading people, you go make your own, you know. It's not about me selling stones. I sell stones basically at cost because they're all handmade. They're a right pain to make, but it's a huge tactical advantage more so. But if you're going to fish on something because you don't trust stones or you don't like the concept or whatever, you know, for whatever reason, my suggestion would be pop yourself into a hardware store, get some stainless steel nuts, and you can drill and bond in a swivel. Job done. Stainless steel, totally inert, won't be a problem. If you lose it, it'll be an annoying factor more than anything else. It's not going to harm or impact, but it will do the job of casting and holding position. And also with a nut, you've got a hollow in it, so you can squeeze paste into it and things like that. You can shape paste around it and make it round as you like. It's a weight, folks. It's not a lead. That's the trouble, isn't it? It's like generic. What leads do you use? It's not about when I was a kid, it's what weights do you use? Now it's about what leads. And if you don't use lead and don't follow the modern narrative, you're some kind of like social outcast, and you're thinking, well, I'm fishing with a stone from a tactical point of view. And if I wasn't fishing with stones because I didn't agree or whatever with the tactical position the stone will give you, why would I fish on something that's known to be toxic? That's getting banned all around Europe. And just because the UK market and the UK industry leaders push lead where people have felt that they must use it. So it is, Ian. I know I'm not on a rant. I'm frustrated. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's just very, very sad that the magazines never told the truth, and the industry is telling people to do things for all the wrong reasons. And you sit back. I've had 2 tackle shops. I can remember having my first tackle shop. I had Company X's leads and their systems, and I was thinking, this is amazing. I'm selling so many leads every week. And then I realised they're all going to the bottom of my lakes because they developed these ejection systems. And we're talking thousands of tons. We're not talking a few kilos here and a few kilos there. I was talking to the Carp Society, one of the guys at Carp Society, and he was saying, it's got to be 40 or 50 ton in here. That's one lake. And I actually think there's probably more in that lake because in Summer Bay in the old days, everybody was dropping, and they still are now, still are dropping. I spoke to one bloke, he owned a fishery in the Cotswolds, and that weekend he said, well, I dropped 40 leads, 43-ounce leads in my last session. And I was just, but why would you do that? He's saying, well, you need to because of the weed. But why? If you've got a 30-pound carp hanging on the end, do you think a couple of ounces is going to make that much difference? And also, what I would say from a fishing point, a tactical point of view, if you drop that, I'll show you this rig in a minute because it's a bit of a talking point. But if you drop, so the weight's here, yeah, at the swivel. So you drop that, so that's in the fish's mouth, that's hooked up, and that weight is keeping it as well in the fish's mouth as you're playing the fish. You drop that, suddenly This is all over the place, and the fish has the ability, if you've seen any of Galen's underwater footage or the underfishing guys, you'll see how fish are shaking their heads, and suddenly you've dropped that, you're going to create slack line, nothing's going to keep that held in. So I think it's tactically, it's daft on so many ways, but it's insane and reckless from an environmental point of view. We all talk, as I said earlier, about fish safety. Well, it's not exactly safe poisoning their watercourse and the systems and the things that live in it. Anyhow, we'll say leave it at that. But because I just know, like Ian, I look at these lakes I go to, and it's just shocking. Just shocking to know that this damage has been done and is being done and continue promoted. But anyway, let's move on to happier times. Do you want to share a Toblerone? Don't, Ian. No, I have eaten so much chocolate that I believe I've made myself, my insulin spike's gone through the roof and beyond. It was just wrong. It's just, people buying all this stuff, and I just sit there, Yule logs and clotted cream. That's been a favourite. It's terrible, isn't it? Anyway, there we go. No Toblerone, but thanks for the offer. What's Auntie saying? Do you think lead weight should be banned in sea fishing as well when you have you use grits? So wondering. At the end of the day, Anthony, just to kind of ring fence where we're off, if you look at the definition, so you put into AI or whatever it is nowadays, and the definition of fishing weight, it doesn't say it has to be made of lead. The only reason that fishing weights are made of lead is because it's cheap. It's still a cheap resource compared to other metals or high density things, and it's got such a low melt point. You can do it in your garden shed. So if you said, right, you're going to have to start using stainless steel weights in sea fishing, and they have been developed in places like Holland, Belgium, Denmark, these they're really forward thinking. So they've got these weights that you can use. They're about 15% bigger than lead. So straight away people go, oh, that's bigger than lead, the fish will see it. It's not about what we see, it's about what the fish senses any road. And then they seem to forget that tungsten's even more dense than lead. So if that's your argument, that it's bigger than the non-toxic varieties, say the zincs and things like that, which are still problematic, high carbon footprint, things like that. But also I think you've got the situation where anybody can make it. So it's being made really cheaply outside of regulations, and that's why they're trying to regulate it. Well, they are regulating it in Europe, but since Brexit, I don't know how the impact and the proposed bans are going to impact in England. It shouldn't make any difference if it's scientifically proven that it's bad. So you can develop weights for sea fishing. But the trouble is, people make them in their back sheds. It's cheap, it's easy, but they don't seem to appreciate that being unregulated, children can get hold of lead dust and all the kind of horrible things that go with it. It's a very complicated, but also very simple subject. Is lead toxic? Yes or no? Yes. Well, therefore, should we be using it? Yes or no? No. And then it would create innovation as well. Because I'm not trying to sell stone. Anybody can go down. You can't go to the beach and pinch stones off the beach, but you can go to your garden centre and you can araldite some swivels onto stones, and it'll do the job. That's what people were initially doing, or finding a stone with a hole in it. Because at the end of the day, it's just to cast. All this thing about, when these companies have come out and said you can't cast stones, all we've been able to say is, well, you can't be very good at casting. Because I've be the first person to say I'm not the best caster in the world, but I can hoof a stone out there. There we go. Let's leave it at that. Ian saying, I think the worst. I think it is going out there. I think fisheries are starting to sit up and say, actually, we've been told a bit of a party line here. Doesn't. Vince is saying about going into the water systems. Yeah, if you look at Flint Town in America and look at the lead content that got in there and what it's in. Yeah, so Ian's saying, I think a lot of people are saying that. Sorry, I don't want this to be a whole thing about stones. But a lot of fisheries, like I say, 4 fisheries have just gone stones only in Thailand. Not because they love Simon Pomeroy or I'm their bestest mates or anything like that. They've done it because they're fishery managers and they manage water quality and substrate quality, and that's why they've done it. They've not done it for, and obviously they want their anglers to catch more fish because it's good for that. So, our celebrity, Simon's saying, I shouldn't have, I've started us off here, haven't I? But our celeb brigade drink a glass of water with lead weight in it every day for a year to see what they say. We used to do it at shows, Simon. I always used to keep a glass of water, and you'd have somebody come up and, you know, start, rah, there's nothing wrong with it. And you go, well, do you have kids? And they go, well, why was that? And they go, well, would you let your kid drink out of this? And it's got a lead in the bottom. Well, of course I wouldn't. And you just say, you know, it's not rocket science, is it? With all that going into the system, makes you wonder how safe our water. Well, to be quite honest, I'm looking at getting, because I've got a borehole here and I want to come off of mains water, because tell you what, you research it, the crap they're putting in our water to make it drinkable, it's shocking. It really is. Plus you've got lead thrown in for the mix as well. I fished stones today, didn't get the distance but still caught, managed to get out where the waves were breaking. Yeah, I mean, like I say, if you get the right shape one, I've actually designed a sea fishing weight. We need to get to another level where I can actually bring it out, because it does incorporate stones within it. But as long as you can get out to the fish, that's the main thing. It's like these people that say, oh, I can cast 200 yards or whatever. And you think, well, in this country, 200 yards you'd be on the road on the opposite side of the lake. In Europe, you wouldn't use it. You wouldn't be casting, you'd be using a boat. So there we go. Mick Mayer, how you doing? Hope you and the family well, Mick. Clues in the world, fishing weight. Exactly, Ian, exactly. I use a lot of tungsten lure fishing, but it's expensive and super high melt point. Yeah, it is, Lee. That's the trouble with tungsten. And also there's research done in America now that actually tungsten over a period of time starts to leach a certain amount of toxins. But the reason that tungsten gets kind of vilified in some quarters is its melt point is something like 3,300 and something degrees centigrade. So somebody can't do it in their shed, and there's a lot of people who are protective of lead who do it at home and sell it to their mates, and they're the people the ban is actually particularly focusing on, because they're the ones that aren't regulated. No way they can regulate it. So what can they do? They can't have a part ban. They're going to have to, what they're doing is saying, look, we're having to ban it because we can't regulate everybody in their shed. So that's what it is. But yeah, it's got a super high melt point, as everything really. Lead's the only thing that's got density that you can melt at, you know, low levels. So the carbon footprints of these non-toxic are, you know. Brian's saying, when I was stationed in Cyprus, we used to fish the dams. Locals didn't use lead, they were using old spark plugs. I couldn't believe it. Well, to be quite honest, I used to use spark plugs when we fished when I lived on the Isle of Wight as a nipper. That's what we were using. We'd go down to the local garage and get all their old spark plugs. And because at the end of the day, if we lost it in the reefs, we're fishing off like Gurnard and places like that, you know, you weren't losing your lead. And we knew from a very young age, I'm not saying you should do it nowadays, but we were just using a weight for what a weight is. So, and we'd be fishing a rotten bottom, and if it got snagged in, you know, the rotten bottom would snap, and we'd just reel everything back bar the spark plug. Now, I'm not saying that's advisable nowadays, but what it does highlight, and what you're highlighting, Brian, is you don't need to use lead to make a fishing weight. You don't. It's just something that the industry's done, so we buy lead off them. You don't need to do that. And like I say, if I didn't fish stones, and I fish stones from a tactical position, the fact is I can use it as a method feeder, I can flavour, you know, fish, it's not an anomaly in a fish's backyard, it's just part of the background chatter. I just fish a stainless steel nut, and you can buy them in all different sizes, you know, huge ones for tractors and things like that, and so you've got weights, you've got calibrated weights, and if you want to make it into a shape, well, you put it into a PVA bag. Well, what doesn't matter what shape it is, you hoof it into a PVA bag, and if you want to get distance, and you've got to just put some paste around it, and mould it into a round shape, or a pear shape or something like that, and you'll hoof it to the horizon. So and that's what we'll be doing. We'll be showing people in Catch More Fish, how to make weights and how to make other things that are very, very pro the environment. Because I'm old now, certainly feel old, and look old and grey and things like that. But I'm very, very cautious that unless some of us start standing up and saying, look, this is wrong, folks. We need to do this right. And by doing it right, the irony is you'll end up catching more fish anyhow. But if we're going to follow the mass trends, who don't seem to be, why are these companies not saying that the Echo report has said lead should be banned? Why are they not doing it? And that's what we should be questioning as anglers. And I would say, going back to it, it's not about flogging this. It's about looking after these waters, that if we don't have them and look after them, well, what kind of state is our hobby going to be in? Shocking. Power of influencers. POM, Ian Britain. Whilst I remember, how about a prize for the best short video stones being cast to prove they do cast? Obviously, we'll need to know how far they go going, but the myth should be busted. Yes, I'm all up for that, but we have done it. There's several films floating around where people are getting ridiculous distances, because it's just not true what these companies have said. Of course, you can cast if it's round in a spherical shape. This is what I've always said. You go into a shop and you'll have all of these leads, and they're all different shapes. Some will be for casting, some will be for fishing flat surfaces like rivers and things like that. It's the same with a stone. I know something like that. That's pretty damn good shape to hoof to the horizon. But like I say, the majority of situations we find ourselves in, especially in this country, is you're never ever going to cast. Lakes on Cotswolds like Horseshoe and various water park waters. But most places we're fishing in this country are a few acres maximum, and you'd be casting outside of your swim or onto the opposite bank. If you're going to cast, you don't need it. I mean, most of my fish are caught on underarm flicks down a margin, to be quite honest. As long as it holds your bait in position, that's all and I fish tiny, tiny stones, to be fair, because tactically I believe that's a better way of doing it. What's Trevor saying? So, Ian, you can talk to me about that. We'll set it up, but you might have to run it for me. But I'm all for that. We can do that. Rob's saying a stone's weight covered in method mix can easily be cast 60 yards. In all honesty, Rob, we've got some huge distances, and Ian's got a good point. Perhaps we should do it again now this spring, set something up at Horseshoe and have a bit of a competition day, get people to turn up and see how far you can really. But with a method ball, I can really well past 60 yards, and you literally shape it into the shape you want. The method mixes I make will bind to that stone, and as long as you're using, that's the only reason I use a 2 3/4 pound test curve rod. The new ones are much more through action, is so I've got the oomph to put out 3 or 4 ounces of method at distance if I need to be doing that. Matt Wise, how you doing, Matt? Congratulations on catching your 30 from Linear. I saw that. Oh, you're still there again. Look at that. Not very many people do long distance casting. Not even sure why anybody would do it. If you can pre-bait, there's zero need for any long distance casting. Like I say, as long as people enjoy the hobby, Vince, that's the main thing from my point of view. But I think, as you correctly say, there's a lot of kind of things that are put out there that actually don't, once you question them, they don't hold up. There's no evidence to support. So again, is saying, has the UK banned lead bird shot? That was a huge adjustment here. They made it mandatory to use steel. Yes, the irony is, the BAC, who are the people behind the guns over here, have actually come out and said, no, lead's a problem. It's already banned over wetlands. So, you have to use ceramic or stainless over wetlands. But again, you go back to this problem where people historically have been able to make their own lead for their shotguns and things like that, and so there are always barriers being put up, but they've actually come out now. Last year they came out and said it needs to be banned. It's really, really bad, especially these tiny shots. When lead got banned initially in 1987 for anything under an ounce, it was because birds like swans, wildfowl, were basically picking it up and then dying from lead poisoning. I mean, there's loads of footage of, you know, and what they found, that it affected swans' eyesight. They was, you know, flying into pylons all the time. But it is happening here. It's just the fishing industry is so antiquated, and because it's not regulated, nobody's sitting there and saying, well, we should be doing something. Yeah, you just said again about wildfowl. Steel shot on wildfowl, exactly. Paul Pittman script. No, yeah, the myth has been busted loads of times. Yeah, this is Lee Kelly, a friend from the upper regions of Scousland, and he certainly knows that you can hoof a stone at plenty of distance. Lee's been with us a long time, and it is, you can. It's just something put out there. Because when somebody says to you they can't cast, you go, have you tried to cast them? They go, well, no, because they don't. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Ian saying, seriously think about going on the line of paste covered stones and a small hook bait. Sometimes less is more. Yeah, but again, you've just got to think about what your paste is made of. And what I would say, my tea's gone cold, is you know, it's about variations. I mean, you know how many fish I've caught on horseshoe using the method mix. 2 tiny little jungle pop-ups on the weed rig, folded back in, cast into the weed, not stupid weed, but cast into the weed, and I've caught so many fish. And why have I caught that fish? I believe it's because I'm fishing unobtrusively with a stone. I'm fishing with food items around, and so the fish are actually eating that method ball more than anything else. And because I've got a couple of little 10mm squabs floating around, that's why I'm catching those fish. So again, it is very much about the ingredients. But that, what you're saying, is something that is, again, you know, we've caught loads of fish by moulding a bit of multiworm around the stone, and so you can shape it into a shape where you can hoof it to the horizon, adding that extra weight. But obviously it takes longer. We even kind of conquer it off, so you'll put your paste on there and then you put some method mix around it, so you've got different breakdowns as well. But it all boils down to whether it's a good stuff to put around your stone or your method, or however you're fishing. And that's the thing that, you know, again, that's one of the myths out there, and that's why or I'm questioning, is that why various bait companies won't be animal feed regulated, because their content of the ingredients isn't what it should be. But Ian, give that a go, because I promise you it works. I promise you it works. Paste cover stones was an edge for me down at Ashford. Yeah, so Galen, when he fished, him and Dan came over, they emptied Jack's pool, and again, you know, you're having something that is leaching slowly off, and drawing the fish in through their olfactory. So, you know, method mix can be you can muck around with method mix to change breakdown rates. But the fact is, if you've got something there sending a signal out, I've had people say, oh, I'm not going to do that because they'll eat the stone. And it's like, you know, these things are just mad assumptions. Of course they don't. But what they're doing is they're drawn in and they'll pick up the hook bait. And that's their way it works. So, Ian saying over 90 yards. Yeah, I mean, we've had... there's one guy, Martin Lenehan, and I'll have to dig the film out and post it back up. I can't remember how, it was 160 yards plus. But he's got all the right rods and balance gear and things like that, right shaped stone. And of course, you can hoof it out there. It's just something that's been put out by individuals and influencers who don't want their markets compromised in any way, shape or form. So that's the truth. That's the truth. And you can go up against these manufacturers. They won't go up against me because it is the truth. They'll just try and rubbish us. But there we go. Such is life, such is business. There you go. Lee's saying he can do 140 overshoes on a 3-pound test curve rod. I can cast the stones right in the margins. That's where it is. Lee Kelly, 140 is a good chuck. I'm impressed with it. No, I mean, people like Lee and that lot, we've done when we've fished in France and things like that. You know, we're fishing some big distance like at Le Quay and that lot, and so you have to hit those spots. And because we're that way inclined to be fishing stones for all the advantages as well as the non-toxicity element, you know, you just find something that will cast that. And if you know, people say, oh, they're flat, they won't. Well, yeah, flat stone, you wouldn't use that. You put that down the margin, for example, or in moving water, so the water goes over it. But if you want to cast the distance, you know, just because a 2-ounce round one is slightly larger than a 2-ounce lead, it doesn't mean it won't hoof out there. Look at a cannonball, for example. Oh well, love them white squabs. what's that about? What's that about, Lee? What have I done there? James Stinson, I say he's knows a lot about Palatrax. Stones is no hard to cast on lead, as long as the weight is there to flex the rod. You can chuck the miles exactly. And Trevor, I'm just coming up to Trevor's thing, and it's very true. It's like how you're using a hammer. Technique is a must on casting. If you think, I always say to people, it's like golf. You see somebody who's really good at golf. They don't whack and hack and smack away to get the golf ball. It's all about a flow, and then they hit the golf ball and it goes miles. You think, well, they didn't even hit that. It's a bit like when people choke a hammer or use a hammer properly. Aidan, how you doing? Long time no see. I think I'm up to it. Right, now, where am I? So, last shout out. If you want to win tonight's draw, there's a load of goodies. And now what we're going to do is we're going to come to... I'll turn this round, and then I've got a couple of things to show you. And then I'm going to go and feel sorry for myself because there's so much chocolate around here. I'm not allowed to go anywhere near it. I have made a promise. I've actually started working on my gym. I'm going to get all buff at my age. Not. Right, here we go. So, yes. So, this is for loads. Oh, this is absolutely full. There's hangers down there. There's all kinds of stuff. Why did we stop using these? Why did we stop using this? It's just because we got sold other stuff. But there's even a one of the old grinders there with a handle on it. So, so all this stuff will be coming to the winner, and I don't know. I've got Tinny's just drawn it, and the winner is Richard Davies. I don't know if Richard's here this evening, but Richard, you have won the bumper prize, so congratulations. Richard has won the Christmas mega draw, so that'll be a nice little extra Christmas present for him. And what we'll do is we'll have... but whilst I've got it around, let me just move this aside a second, because I did put up a post, and I've been waiting for these. Let me just try and get a bit of clear background. And let me move my light. Now, I always struggle here, but what I'm going to show you is these turned up, and I did talk about them on the page. Now, let's see. I'm going to have to get my light sorted here. One day, with your fantastic support, we'll actually end up having a little studio, so I can... So you may have seen the Grips Eagle Waves in the larger sizes, okay? So if you can see this is the... I've got these for us now. So these are mini Grips Eagle Wave. You can see, hopefully, can you see the... I don't know if you can... does anybody know how oh, there we go, you can see the little indents as they're there. It's an offset, very interesting concept, because now you're not closing the back of the shank, you've actually got a 360 of clear point. You've got the outturned eye, and a lot of people now are using the outturned eye, certainly on the surface. This is the size 6. I've got the 8s and 10s. I've just got to get the packaging sorted. But they are available. Well, they're available now if team members want any. They just won't come in anything proper packaging. They just come in a bag. So just give Tinny a call. Cutting point again. So there's a new offering in the Grips design. I think we'll be trying this. I'll get people like Lee and Paul to be trying this for perch. I think it's going to be an awesome perch hook. But I do like this whole concept of the offset. And the reason is, as you can see there, if I hold it a bit more acutely, that point is away from the rear of the shank there. Does that make sense? Any questions? Because they're a bit about to come out, and I mean, they're just, again, super sharp. He says as he drops it by knocking his fat hand on it. But they really are ever so sharp. But again, that outturned eye is a lot of people finding favour. I know Matt uses the he's catching loads of fish at Linear, and that is again so yes, they are another pattern we have. Let me just show you the smaller ones. It's terrible, isn't it? I have the dream job. I don't like some of the grief that goes around with it, but there you go. That's the
the 10s. So I can see that being really interesting on my surface fishing. So as you can see, top of my finger, I don't know if that's a good gauge or not really, but yeah, interesting, really looking forward to that. And as it is, let me just go. So this is the rigs I was mucking around with today. So basically the Steam Link in the £25. There's no kicker here because of the outturned eye, so I've just got that piece removed. So, but it just, I mean, I'm not into all this like taking it across the palm of my hand and that lot, but you know, this turns very, very aggressively. So it's just another option, folks, another option for us to look at. And so I've tied these up, and me and Matt Rice are going to give them a bit of a go tomorrow, and John, I've made some for Northern John, so he's going to have a go. But so there we go, and they'll probably become a team exclusive like I do with all the other rigs. I'll tie these ones personally for the team because that is my little thing I like doing. So there you go. But any questions, just let me know. Right, so we're coming up to, hang on a second, let me just, loads of comments now, so I've pressed the wrong button. Hang on a second, folks, let me start. Right, oh, hang on a second, let me turn round, that'll be you can actually see me. So now I've bear with me. Lee Kelly is the winner. You haven't won for ages, Lee, actually. Well, lots of people saying well done to Richard. Galen, yes, won't be long, Galen. Lee's saying like the look at them, pop-up presentation in. It's again, you know, this is another first. You know, like I say, the big ones, the big eagleways that we've got for the predator fishing, but nobody's been using, you know, anything like this. So it's going to be a bit of another world's first. So, Anthony, again, we were talking about this today. John was talking about the success he's been having on grip sea fishing, and yeah, spot on there. Yeah, Lee, I like those 10s for surface, mate, and zigs. Trying for carp flies, yes, Stephen, exactly. Could use them for the carp. Yeah, I mean, again, it's multi-species, isn't it? You know, your size 10s for your tench and things like that, your bream. Can you add some 10s to my order I put in today? Ian, can you send me a message, Ian, because I'll forget this. Send me a message and I'll sort you out. Ring in the morning, yeah, just give us a tinkle. We're good to catch up, Lee. So yes, they are something very, very different than what else is on. Now I'm blinding myself, let me move that. Very different than what's on the market. They've been designed for a specific reason. It's not just because you know, just because I fancy the shape or something like that. They're, you know, they're proven. And so I've got a couple of other things to do. I've had a few questions, and this was the best way of doing it. It's about the new Blades rods. Everything's gone very dark here now. Oh, you can still see me. The new Blades rods, we're just about there now. Well, we are there now. So they are being commissioned. They'll be about 8 weeks from the start of the new year. So in February, we'll be getting them. People ask me about could they pay in installments, and obviously I'm trying to do my best. I'm doing them as cheap as I possibly can, so they actually don't. The danger is they're like almost like, you know, I don't know, 40% more they should be. So don't think the Blades rods are cheap, because I'm just doing them cheap, all right, because they are the best quality I can get. But they are now on the online web shop, okay, under the team exclusives, and you can buy now, pay in 3, PayPal, I'm being told. If that means anything, I just go on Amazon and buy, so I don't know. And I've got about £3 budget she gives me. But no, so if you're interested in the blades and you were, you know, you were looking at the financing, the best way of financing it, so you can buy now and PayPal pays in 3 or something. I don't understand how it works, but at least it's a cheaper option. Right, so last but not least, any question about the blades, always feel free to give me a call. I mean, they are obviously very, very special, and they're all numbered. They can have your names on it and all these things as well. So let me just turn this back round. So this lucky person is going to win David Cragg. David, you have won the grips bundle from tonight. So well done, David. If you're still here, we will get you to send me a message with your address, please, David, and I will get those in the post to you. So what's it? Oh, hi, Will. Will's all the way from Ontario in Canada. Reference further, can you offer us here? No. Basically, I spoke to my contact, Will, last week. We've changed trajectory slightly. We found a different, because we're using manufacturers outside of the fishing industry. We're not using, I don't want to just buy the same stuff. If I can't make it, I don't want to buy the same stuff. So we're it's like Steamlink. Steamlink isn't what we would call off the shelf. It's something very, very different. It's got nothing actually to do with fishing. I've just sourced it and use it as fishing because you get that effect with that hinge to stiffness. So the leader material is something, I mentioned it probably a few weeks ago, and I mentioned it to some of the folks online that I've been talking to. It's meant to be, I've asked for something very special and they reckon they can make it. So just watch this space, but it's not going to be, it's not going to be something just, knocked up. It's something, that's why it's taken time, to be fair. And we've looked at different options. We've pretty sure we've thinned it down now to the one manufacturer. Now it's going to be a case of sample testing and things like that. So yes, lots happening. What I would like to say as on the final Sunday slot live fever 2024. Thanks for everyone that pops in here and keeps me company on a Sunday evening. I hope you enjoy it. I hope I'm not too controversial. I can't help it. I am what I am. I do get some great feedback. One of the things Keith's done in Catch More Fish magazine, there is a page which the links, so you can go and see, if you dare face me for an hour or so, you can go back and look at these over the years. As Will says, here's to 2025, but thanks for ever so much for the support. I wouldn't be here, Tinny wouldn't be here, the whole company wouldn't be here without the support of you folks. It is exciting times. A lot of people are starting to realise there was never a gimmick, there was never a hidden agenda. What we've had to do in reality is go outside of this country, and we're winning awards, where fisheries are coming on board. It's actually, we're trying to almost in some ways slow certain things down, because we are just a little company, and we want to keep our feet on the ground. We don't want to be a mass producer and get sucked into, well, I won't do it, I'm not going to do it. So, we will only ever make as much bait as I'm comfortable making, things like that. So yes, thank you for your support. So all I'd like to say is, I think for many of us, I know a lot of people in the team, 2024 has been a trial and a challenge. And let's hope 2025 is better. Obviously our political situation and our worldwide situation is I do sometimes think I should start a podcast and really go to town on it. Nothing to do with fishing. But let's fingers crossed that the world becomes a better place in 2025. Though I'm very interested in anybody else's, like the conspiracy theorist in me. I just think I'm a realist. What are these orbs, these glowing orbs? But that's for another time, I think. Not fish relating, but, are we about to be visited by something else? It's all interesting stuff. But no, in all seriousness, thanks for everything. Have a wonderful New Year's Eve. Stay safe, be good, and we'll see you on the other side. And as you know, we're back at work now, so we had Christmas Day and Boxing Day off. So if you need anything, you can always pick up the phone. And so yeah, just appreciate everything and everybody. So stay safe, best to your families, stay healthy, Neil. Hope you get well, and I'll see you on the other side. Next week's live feed will be back over on the main page, but most team members come across from there. So yes, there we go. I'm out of here. Cheers. Take care.